and the Pacific Island Forum countries, and we will be seeking support and advocacy from developed and industrialized countries to back our domestic and regional efforts towards adaptation and mitigation through global funding assistance. I will be seeking an understanding to build a special set of criteria that is simplified to enable us to qualify for financial support for adaptation and mitigation strategies. Mr. President, I join the previous speakers in calling on the international community to collectively meet our Paris Agreement obligations and submit individual, nationally determined contributions without delay. Papua New Guinea was amongst the first countries to submit our NDC in 2020, outlining our goal to be carbon neutral by 2050. This plan includes drafting of our NDC plans, implementation plan regulation and alignment of NDC adaptation and the National Adaptation Plan, thanks to the support we received from the United Nations Development Programme. We want to see our major carbon emitters in the industrialized nations to be very genuine and committed in their actions to fund climate change mitigation and adaptation. Our failure in that regard is a denial of that responsibility. We wish to advocate also that the 100 billion annual commitment by developed countries to the developing nations on climate financing must be considered different from official development assistance. This will allow its guidelines to be sensitive to the climate change mitigation and adoption agenda and their specific requirement. For Papua New Guinea as a natural gas and oil exporting country, we are working towards ensuring our carbon footprints is minimized by implementing our Sustainable Development Goal 13, Roadmap 2020 to 2030 on climate change, launched last year. However, despite the multiple project submissions for climate financing, Mr. President, Papua New Guinea has had little or limited success in accessing these funds, except for technical assistance in developing the fiduciary framework. This is quite disappointing, Mr. President. We need to see a more practical demonstration of genuine commitments. Other forms of assistance towards climate change adaptation and mitigation must also be streamlined to lessen the increasing debt burdens in small island states to free up the required fiscal space to support the economic recovery efforts from the COVID-19 pandemic and achieve sustainable development. I've had a call on member states to finalize a robust and fair carbon markets under the Paris Rulebook to unlock a new financing stream that better accounts for the sustainable development interests of countries like my own. This will allow us to assign our development agenda under the different but appropriate financing opportunities, as long as the guidelines are appropriate but friendly to us. Mr. President, Papua New Guinea wants to achieve both conservation and development. In forestry, we have ceased issuance of new timber permits and renewal of existing ones, and will achieve complete round log export ban by 2025. We want to move into value adding and downstream processing. We have adopted and designated a large conservation area in one of our provinces, Northern Province to be exact, as a pilot program in partnership with a regional environmental program, which will give us the learning experience we need for further designations of conservation areas. We are also in the process of establishing NDC roadmap for agriculture, forestry, and other land use and energy sector. Mr. President, COVID-19 will continue to remain our biggest challenge. Our numbers are low in terms of both confirmed cases and fatalities at the moment. And one of the most concerning for us in Papua New Guinea is the rate of vaccinations, which is quite low. Our government took up necessary upfront ownership through the enactment of an appropriate legislation in our national parliament, which we call the National Pandemic Act in 2020. This, together with very close working partnership with our valued development partners, including our Pacific family of nations through the Pacific Humanitarian Pathway on COVID-19 program, has given us much success. We cannot speak highly enough of such partnerships, including those through the COVAX facility and with the United Nations system, Australia, New Zealand, USA, Japan, China, European Union, UK, and the United Arab Emirates, which enable us to have immediate access to essential medical equipment and supplies, including the AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccines. We continue to welcome and encourage further strengthening of cooperative global efforts to allow access to the COVID-19 vaccines in countries where they are most needed. We advocate for global efforts in curbing misinformation that has resulted in low rates of vaccinations in our country, especially the Facebook misinformations that keep on going on in public space. It will truly support our efforts in building national advocacy and awareness in the efficacy and safety of COVID-19 vaccines, a program ably supported by our development partners, including mostly notable the churches and the United Nations Country Office. We have to do all of that while keeping a very close eye on the general health sector of our country, because we cannot afford to lose sight of the other aspects of health in our country. Our National Health Plan is ready to be launched, except for the settlement of the financing plan that matches our health plan. It will encompass facility development, capacity building, pharmaceutical procurement, and development of primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare, as well as building our provincial capacities and the requisite capacity building and education in as far as the health sector is concerned. Mr. President, economic management for us involves taking stock of where we were and building the right structures for re-engagement with our international partners, and ensuring that right enablers are put in place to build and sustain a robust economy. It involves taking stock of our debt portfolios, reprioritizing our expenditures, and focusing on important reforms in the utility sector, infrastructure, education, health, and of course, our natural resources. It also involved taking a closer look at specific projects in the extractive industry and working with the proponents to see them come on stream. And for the last 2 years, the bulk of our effort was to ensure that we achieved really a fine balance between the adherence to our COVID-19 protocols and requirements, but at the same time trying to find a balance between ensuring that our economy was opened and was functioning. Our work in the transparent stocktake of our debt portfolios have resulted in attracting strong support from the World Bank, from the IMF, and has provided important platform for support from our bilateral partners like Australia and Japan, and for this we are truly very, very grateful. We acknowledge the support to us at this important time when COVID has hit us and our economy is struggling. We continue to advocate for the use of our natural resources, but the foundational tenet is that the development of these resources are to be done on the premises that all stakeholders have a shared interest in these developments. And these interests are to be fully satisfied within principles of equity and equality, where we leave no one behind, especially a country like mine, which has many different ethnicities that own a parcel of land in our country. A key area of focus is the substantive investment and development of quality economic infrastructures to link the provinces throughout my country and deliver important services to all our citizens countrywide and enhance their socio-economic opportunities. We have embarked on a very important Connect PNG program, which is trying to connect a rural Papua New Guinea together into one another, which is building and expanding key infrastructure and assets, such as national roads, wharves, jetties, airports, airstrips, and punching new road corridors, and information and telecommunication network, and electricity access to the majority of our population. This is the stimulus for economic transformation of our people. This is done as required by our national constitution, and for those who might need to know, Papua New Guinea was only independent as late as 1975. And this is totally in alignment with our National 8-Point Plan our PNG Vision 2050, our Development Strategic Plan 2010 to 2030, our Medium-Term Plan 3, 2018 to 2022, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to better deliver socio-economic prosperity for the country, and we hope by this we would become a middle-income earning country by 2050. Mr. President, road for PNG continues to be off at the back of our petroleum and energy and the mining sector, which contributes around 60% of our gross domestic product. We continue to advocate for these developments to take place and do as much as we can and as hard as we can to advocate for important policies in those sectors. Our policies on developments in the extractive sector has begun to be cognizant of the diminishing financing envelope from external sources such as loans and grants. At the same time, we have had to move towards better management of our national public debt. We strongly recognize the importance of generating sufficient revenue from our own domestic sources to complement external budget support for our national development priorities. As you would know, Mr. President,